Good morning, artists. Ms. Cameron here, coming to you from Learning at Home. I want to go over some information regarding clothing and how to build up your pencil crayon layers to create the illusion of depth with fabrics and folds. So you've already done an activity that's allowed you to put clothing onto a figure, but as we are moving forward, you might want to continue to practice adding and building up pencil crayon because your final fantasy figure is going to need some sort of clothing on their body or pencil crayon or shading techniques that you're going to add. So I just wanted to give you some tips and information. The first thing that I've done is I've re-pulled out my handouts from the fabrics and folds unit. So having these on hand is going to be really important. So those visuals. The other thing that I did is I intentionally made this a handout that you could print so you could look back and figure out your different folds and how they end up having different tonal ranges sit inside them. So I would have those on hand as you start thinking about the clothing that you're going to be wanting to put on your fantasy figure. And today I'm just going to take you through some tips about how to build up pencil crayon to create the illusion of depth and provide an illusion of clothing on the body. Right, my first step is to come up with some basic outlines that I want to use and do that in pencil. So what I'm doing is I'm actually looking at my cheat sheet and I'm thinking, where do I want my tucks and my folds? And I'm pulling in those lines, thinking about those different directional lines, whether they're making triangles or whether they're hugging tight around the body. And I'm pulling in some of those guiding lines to begin with. All right, once I have my basic guiding lines, I want to start choosing some colors. So my first step is I'm going to start with her shirt, and I'm going to do some yellows, oranges, and that's going to be the starting point of the shirt. So I'm going to start with picking out my lightest color, and I'm going to start with my lightest tones of my yellows. And then I'm going to go on to my oranges. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start thinking about the areas that are inside that are going to be darker. So inside this area would be a darker tonal range than the front area if the light is coming this direction. Also around the bodice, you're going to think about the fact that anything that's closer to the viewer is going to be brighter and anything that's tucked around or inside something is then going to be darker. So I'm going to start with my light yellow and then I'm going to work to my oranges and then I'm going to start pulling my complementary colors into those darker areas also. Okay, so here I go. Right, artists, just a few things to talk about. I have found the darkest areas where the light is going to have the hardest time finding. So inside again, close to the body, inside any folds, and thinking about your light source as it's hitting kind of what area, the front for this example. The last thing I want you to think about too is the pencil motion that you're taking. So hopefully you were able to note that I have gone around the sleeve. So I'm not coloring up and down, I'm coloring around, I'm coloring around the bodice. So applying our knowledge of cubes, spheres, cones, and circles. So those are the things that you want to continue to think about as you're adding your pencil crayon onto the body, right? Onto the pants now. Here we go.